I am recording. Oops, I did it backwards. Who cares? And then I'll share my screen and let me say the blurb. Welcome to the Cluster API release team, our last v1.10 meeting. We've been doing this every Wednesday for a couple months. And as you know, we are part of SIG cluster lifecycle, and therefore we abide by Kubernetes rules of conduct, community rules of conduct, which basically boils down to everybody be nice and make this a welcoming place. You can add your name to the attendees list if you want. With that, let's move on to our agenda for today. Does anybody have any sort of final status they want to give on their teams or anything the 111 team should know if they're watching this video?
I think
Although
they're
that
on this
is
video.
also us, yes. Well,
I don't have any special things to promote. I'm sure we'll be coordinating with each other as we exchange roles. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
same.
also have. Only thing is I need to post the religious status yesterday. Yesterday religious status. That's the only thing I need to do today.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same. I don't think there was anything dangling, but let's check in on the tasks real quick. Uh, I don't know why we didn't check that off, but it's long gone. I think that's covered. Set a tentative release date for the next minor release. I guess we did that because we have the schedule out there. Retro we're doing right now. This for some reason still hasn't merged.
Yeah, that's not much yet.
I guess it's not the end of the world, but we try to anyway, the maintainers will get to it.
Yeah.
And we did the 110 release, and these were sort of ifs. So I think, oh yeah, and this was, but that landed already, didn't it? Yeah. There's actually a PR for this, so I'll go mark that clear. So anyway, in terms of the task list, I think we are clear. It's probably nothing to do on the improvement board and specifically, so and that may also cover, well, actually, in terms of the release team flight check, I guess this is sort of where Chris, you take over. Um, and then there's some tasks to do, and it seems like the next thing is to just let the next team know we're going to meet when we're going to meet next week, ideally, and things like that.
hmm so I've got a doodle I've just put into our channel because the time I thought I was going to do is not good either. So
Okay.
we got to figure that out. So check your private chat with me for time options, and then I'll once we pick it, I think like it's a matter of telling everybody as well as updating the timeline issue with who's on each sub team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything else on my list that I have to do right now, but I was planning to do all that late this week, early next week, I hope.
I think, yeah, and one of the next things I think is to create the big task list issue too at some point, right?
I made it. It's
Oh, you
just it
did?
needs to be
Oh, wow.
updated with the times, with the little
Okay.
dates and italics. So yeah,
That
making it
was,
is easy because that's just a template. So
yeah, it's just fiddly because you do so much editing of it over the next couple months and adding to
right.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. All right. Um, well, let's jump into retro then. And I didn't have much of a structure for this. In the past, we've used, or I've used stickies.io and some other things. But since there's just a few of us here, I'm hoping we can just go for it and do stream of consciousness type feedback and get something good out of it. Um, maybe we should start with what went well and then go on to what we could do better. That seems to, does that work for everybody?
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's just consider it open mic and just anything you think would be useful over either of these categories. Uh, what do we do well, first of all, perhaps? I will volunteer that CI was largely green, and I know Fabrizio and the other maintainers were pretty psyched about that. and we definitely helped.
From the docs, like release notes also, there was slight issue, but I think that's not cause any blocker. So I think that
Sure.
also went.
Yeah. Release notes rolled with bunches, kept working for the most part.
I feel like everyone was very responsive and available, in a way that I wouldn't have expected for a volunteer thing amongst people who have jobs.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Um, what else? I was kind of lazy, at least initially, about contacting maintainers, um, because potentially they weren't going to be available, but somebody was always there to help out, even though, as we all can tell, it's basically three people who are really doing that kind of rotation.
Right.
So
They
later
were
in the
always
cycle,
there. Yeah.
yeah, they were. Later in the cycle, I got a little more proactive about it, and I was trying to make sure somebody was going to be available and all that. But which is what the docs sort of say to do. They do say to do. They say make sure a maintainer's available for every Tuesday. But in practice, they were very flexible, especially since I know they're in Europe, and so it was kind of a late day for them several of those days. Um, Anything else? I mean, I think overall it went very well, and I know Fabrizio was psyched, uh, and the other maintainers were as well.
Also, the process that's written in the notes, I think that is pretty smooth. We like if someone new is also coming, they can read the docs and then follow the process.
Yeah, I agree. I really just, even though we had the emeritus advisors, Stephen Cahill and I'm forgetting who else early on, I really didn't need to talk to them about hardly anything. The notes were pretty much clear enough to make it to show what we needed to do.
Yeah.
Should we jump over to what we could do better?
Sure.
Feel free to think of
Okay.
anything positive as well.
The
Yeah, here we go.
CI process is not extremely clear and easy to pick up from the documentation, and I did have to consult and get confidence that I was actually doing things right. And yet, now that I feel like I know what I'm doing there, I don't have any good suggestions for improving the docs because they're accurate, if not imposing and unhelpful. So
Because the
I'm
task is pretty difficult,
it's a
essentially.
hard task, yeah, and ultimately the thing to underline is that it tells you to contact maintainers if you can't fix a CI issue. And every time I reached out to maintainers, they jumped on it, they fixed it, and they had no problem with me bringing it up. So,
Okay.
like, ultimately, the CI role is just make issues for tests that fail, and things will get better. And maybe you can fix them, but if not, somebody else will.
Okay. Is that, and I admit I haven't actually read all the documentation yet,
I
even though
think,
this is the hat
yeah,
I'm going to put on. Is that
when
what
you
it
read
says to
them
do?
over, I think it will be interesting to see what you take away from the docs,
Okay. Yeah,
and
yeah,
then maybe we'll make an improvement.
yeah. Well, because that's kind of like the on-call rotation type role is you're just supposed to triage the issue and hand it over to someone else to fix it.
Right.
So that would make sense, but I don't actually
Yeah,
know
but
what the docs say. So
the docs emphasize that if you can fix it, you should, which is like fine, but some of these problems, even debugging them is hard, let alone fixing them. Actually, fixing them tends to be easy. It's figuring out the problem. So, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. My takeaway is that the docs may be pushed too hard on you fixing everything, and expecting people to do that is hard. Um, but this also gets at like some of the other issues I have overall, which is our retention of volunteers was not good, right?
yeah, I was going to get to that too.
And I know on the CI side of things, there didn't seem to be much filtering of people who knew anything about the end-to-end tests, who got assigned to that team. There were people on that team who had never really worked with Cluster API before, and they were hoping to get experience with Cluster API, which is great. But I don't know if in the context of like end-to-end test debugging on this extremely complicated end-to-end tests framework is the way to do that.
Yeah, that is probably the case for the next cycle too. I didn't really do, if people self-selected and said they wanted to be on the CI team, or a couple of people said they already had been,
And
then they
maybe
got on the CI
that's
team. But
yeah, and some of the people last time, they are better at it now than they were at the start, or at least they're more familiar with it. It's just I think that's a terrible way to start with this project. But maybe this is intentional and there's history to this. I just don't know, right?
yeah, I can
And
see
we need the
that.
volunteers. So we're not always going to have the luxury of our CI person being unemployed and having nothing else to do. So there's
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, we have.
know. I'm not gonna be able to do as much hand holding as you did, I think. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead. Kind of.
Yeah, I'm just saying we have to give chance to everyone.
yeah. So like they do need a chance. So how do we set them up for success, but also filter it to people who even have a chance of success? I don't know. Or maybe we can't. We just don't have that luxury. We don't have enough volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, it probably also boils down to when I did my pitch, and I think it was similar to what Fabrizio was asking previously. I just said, "Hey, come one, come all," but we could certainly place some qualifications and say CI volunteers should have some familiarity with the code base or all that. That would,
Then we're not going to get anything, maybe. I don't know. That's what I'm worried about.
yeah, it's true. Well,
Maybe the
for
starting of the CI, we can like the starting of the next release, we can set up some meeting with the CI for the CI process. I'm saying like we can set up some meeting with them and then explain the process. Uh, Probably might help for new volunteers.
Hmm.
didn't you do some of that, Chris, or did
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
intro. I
We
mean,
did
I'm still
some
going to do
intro
that.
videos, yeah, or
Yeah.
Okay.
videos, because we recorded them. But yeah, I did some intro meetings that we didn't record too, where we just kind of sat there and I paired through getting them. But I mean, they were on the steps where it's like they hadn't set up tilt before, so like they were not ready for jumping into end-to-end test debug. They were still at the how do I compile cluster API and run it in a dev mode. So.
Yeah, that's a fairly steep hill to climb, actually, if you
Mhm.
haven't done it. Hmm. Yeah, that was the big one on my mind overall, or is volunteer retention. Because, people come here for a variety of reasons. A lot of people just want to get deeper into the Kubernetes project. A lot of people want to have enough credibility to join the GitHub org
Mhm.
and all that. And a lot of people really just want to help and do some decent work. Um, and those are kind of different audiences. So I don't know. We
Mm.
will do our best.
Yeah, and this might not be something we can fix.
Yeah.
True.
In terms of
Either,
docs, it's not a much big deal because docs is a pretty straightforward and easy task. So I also did the same, like set up intro meeting and record the session and then leave the recording in the channel. Whenever they want, like they are stuck somewhere, they can just watch the recording again and do the process.
Nice.
cool. Yeah, it seemed pretty organized.
The CI has more vibes to its process. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And comms has more discrete tasks like
Yeah.
that you can kind of assign, which is nice. Um, okay. One thing I was thinking of is it says in the docs, or it says I think it's optional in the docs, but I intended to do Zoom meetings to show how we do all the releases and
Hmm.
all that in case um, do the release on Zoom. But And I think that would be useful because I think some of the value people come into this project can get is getting somewhat familiar with the odd kind of release process we have because it's very similar to a lot of Kubernetes projects and Kubernetes itself. Create the release notes PR first, that triggers all the other mechanisms, then make the promotion PR. All that stuff is not very interesting, but ultimately, if you do a lot of stuff in Kubernetes, you'll see the pattern and that'll be helpful. So I think it's useful maybe to show people how we do that. On the other hand, I don't think the interest is really there. Or at least after the first one or two, no one but us three showed up.
Right.
Um, and then I got a little sloppy or lazy about it, and I think we did most of the releases effectively just over Zoom, or maybe we powwowed for a minute or two, and then did the rest on Zoom. But in the back of my mind, I was like, we're missing an opportunity to show these volunteers uh, how the sausage is made. But maybe no one really cares anyway, so I'm a little conflicted about that. What do you guys think?
I think having a video where you do it once and it's just archived is fine. That seems reasonable. And then they can refer to that if they need it as a reference, like what John did for the docs.
That's a great idea.
And sorry I joined a little late. I got stuck in traffic, but what
Oh,
are
no
we
worries. We are just trying to go through a
discussing?
free form sort of retro, and we went through what went well. But if you have anything on your mind, I mean, just blurt it out. There's only the five of us here, and then
Gotcha.
or six of us, and
Mhm.
five. I can count five. And that now we're doing what we could do better, and we went over. Unlike the rest of the tasks, CI stuff is not that clear in the docs, and actually has a very high learning curve. We didn't we felt like we didn't do that great overall at volunteer retention because most people kind of flaked off or disappeared. Not you, Morgan. Um, and and what can we do to make that better for people? And then I was just saying I didn't actually in the end end up doing anything but the very first release on Zoom, but the docs kind of say maybe we should do that. Um, but I didn't feel like people would be that interested. And Chris made a good point. Maybe we'll just make a reference video about doing a release, and if people are interested, they can watch it.
Gotcha. That's what I was asking. So when I logged in, I did hear the part about like volunteers, and I was like, from the people on here, I feel like I'm one of the newer volunteers. So I wanted to ask just in case I had something to add. But okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Um, yeah, so I think to honor the spirit of doing the releases in the open, maybe that's the thing to do. Is I'll try. We can try and do the first, or I guess this is you now, Chris.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try
You're
to do the
making me
first.
work. Okay.
I'm not. It's just ideas. This is just ideas. I'm not assigning anything here.
Uh-huh.
But maybe we could do the first release or two on Zoom
I think
in
that'd
the
be smart
open.
anyway,
See
right?
if
Yeah.
anybody shows up, and then we'll also
It'll
record
help me
them.
do it right.
We may we may
So
actually
are
have
you
a
thinking the
recording
whole
already, but
thing where we're waiting for the PRs to get approved and all that? Is that what you're thinking?
ideally, right? So
Yeah.
people can see, and then maybe we edit the video
That could
to
take a while.
skip the 40 minutes of waiting that is part of that. I don't know. It's just an idea.
I feel like well see now that I think about it as something I have to do, I feel like the docs so no, not the recording, like the releasing. I feel
Yeah,
like I have the info I need in the docs. I feel like it is well written there.
yeah.
Um But if there's some mandate that I missed in there about doing it in the open, that's fine. I thought it was all optional to
Somewhere
do it
near
in
the
the open.
bottom. Yeah, it's optional. It's totally
Yeah.
optional, I think.
Anyway, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been
What
thinking about
else?
streaming anyway, so I might just work it into that and just stream the whole thing one day on a zero viewer Twitch channel.
Oh, and Twitch. That'd be interesting.
Well, and I would archive it as well, so we could, yeah.
I'll get in there and just make snarky comments while you're doing the release,
Perfect. Yeah.
like a real Twitch channel.
Could actually, but I could actually do the Zoom and stream it at the same time, so that way you could talk to me and make snarky comments. So
Perfect.
that's better, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but then you need the emotes. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Go ahead.
So, what other feedback do people have? Peter, did you have any? I didn't want to talk over you the whole time. Or Morgan, do you have anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm here to learn. So, yeah, I'm just sort of new to open source, so I'm just a bit of a fly on the wall.
Okay, cool.
I did have something to add, but I saw other people got off mute, so I wanted to make sure they had time before I started chatting.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. The only feedback that I had is as a volunteer and someone that's also relatively new to the space, it's not all that welcoming to volunteers. Like, I think we have a environment of just we invite people and then expect that everybody just knows what's going on and where to find information. Um, yeah, but depending on the volunteer, if they like just ask questions, then people are helpful, but we don't go seeking to help someone, I guess, if that makes sense.
I don't know, is that kind of what you're saying? Welcome. So like
Yes.
we need more uh direct. Do you need more information initially or just more
I think
support
more of like we
ongoing
don't
or
need like I wouldn't say we need to go and like hold hands, but if we notice someone's new or they're volunteering, just a quick rundown of like this is where you can find certain information. For me specifically, with me being on the comms team, it would have been nice if somebody was just like, "Hey, for these tasks, this is where you find this information." Because like for the first half of when I was giving updates and things, I was doing it all manually. I didn't know that it was like an easier way to do that.
is this specific to some of the docs comms tasks or just
Yeah, those are the only ones I have insight to, so I don't really know how it was on like CI, but that's how it was
okay.
for me. I didn't know where to find things until someone noticed like I was working a little too hard and they were like, "Oh, this is how you do this." I was like, "This
Yeah.
is so much easier."
Um I mean I kind of feel like this, I don't actually really know. I feel like this is probably true in general that, there's some information, you're on your own to go read it. We have some intro meetings and hopefully we explain a little more there, but then ultimately it's kind of sink or swim. And in some sense, very that's very realistic to the Kubernetes community overall. But in this
That is,
context, I think that would help to, I don't know. I feel like part of the previous thing why we lost volunteer retention was because there wasn't quite as much support or communication as some people probably wanted.
yeah, I was gonna say that. I think you hit the nail when you said it's kind of how it is in the community as a whole in Kubernetes. But if we are having an issue of volunteer retention, that's probably part of it.
I think so. Um, so specifically for some of these, do you think there's any changes in the docs we could make so that the comms tests are even clearer, or so you didn't waste time uh, doing things the inefficient way? If we could
Um,
make a PR for
so
the docs, that would maybe solve some specific things.
yeah, I don't think so. If once I got them, they were pretty straightforward from what I can remember. But if I do end up thinking of something, then I'll just open a PR to change the doc and go from there.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, let me know also. I can always ready to help.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying overall, and I just, hmm, you know, I don't. People aren't going to have even more time to devote to that, so maybe we could do better in terms of communication and providing resources and all that, and being available. I feel like volunteers could also do a little better, or people in general can do a better job of reaching out when they need help. The cluster API release channel, ideally, people should have felt free to just go in there and ask any question they had about all this stuff, but that didn't really happen very often. So maybe we should make that more clear. Um, so I don't know. I would like to do better here, but I feel like, we probably gave as much time as any of us could give to helping people out. So I don't know that the 111 cycle is going to be better on those terms.
Yeah,
I,
I
I
will
I
say
don't know how to fix it because
Yeah, right.
maybe we have to schedule like these are the class times, but then what if the new people can't make it, right? I don't.
yeah, I
Scheduling's
will say
super hard.
because I like joined a little later, I may have just missed like the intro where they were giving the rundown. So that may have
I-
been okay, but
No, I think you might be right about just having a good intro. Um, but even then, like say we do like a really good intro overview in next week's release meeting, will people who join a week or two in go back and watch that meeting and how do I make them do that? I don't know.
Yeah, at that point, I think if we just do our part of like noticing they join late and like, hey, this is what we did in the last meeting, make sure you watch the recording.
Yeah.
As adults, we've done our part.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's still a good point. We want to make it as welcoming as possible. We say that in the little boilerplate we have to say at the beginning of all these meetings, but we really do mean it, especially in this context. This is a great way for volunteers to feel like this is a community, because it is.
Yeah.
We've got, we're almost out of time. Anybody have any more feedback to put here? We have a hard stop because the actual Cappy meeting takes over this channel in just 2 minutes, so I guess we can call it good.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that we can make this happen. Certainly not for 111 because it's too late, but maybe a break between cycles would be nice. And that's probably not our call, but yeah.
Yeah.
A week or two to reset. Especially when it's the same people.
Yeah, that's worth asking for sure. I mean, I would say, we kind of get a break initially because we don't have any releases to do, but what replaces that is, kind of training up volunteers and getting
Right.
oriented and all that. So it's not really that slack at the
It's
beginning.
probably a bigger deal for the CI, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we got to call it there.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I think that was pretty productive. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you
Yep.
leading that.
Thank
you
you,
so much.
Matt.
We'll
All right,
see some of you on the next one. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.